Hey, welcome to another episode of how we talk about leaders getting others to the next level. Today, we have Liz Wiseman. She's going to be speaking with us. And hey, my name's Mark Hunter, the sales hunter. Gerhard Gschwandtner is the host. He's kind of the drives the machine, but it's all about peak performance mindset.
So with that in mind, I want Liz to hold up your book. My Christmas wish is for everybody to get multipliers. I've read the book. I've listened to Liz's presentation. I was really impressed. It is such a powerful concept. And why don't you give us the executive overview, Liz?
Multipliers is about why we get better around some leaders, why some leaders seem to bring out the very best in us, our best ideas, our best effort, our best capability, and why other leaders cause us to hold back and play it safe. So it's really about why do some leaders seem to amplify the capability of others, and I call those leaders multipliers, whereas other leaders, whom I call diminishers, tend to get a fraction of people's capability, and really they become the diminishers of intelligence and talent for their team. Often they're very, very smart leaders themselves, but no one around them gets to be smart.
So who would be a multiplier leader in the public eye that you can think of right now?
I've always considered Tim Cook to be very much of a multiplier leader. And so I got to work with Tim pretty closely over the years. And he is one of these leaders who really brings out the best in other people. He's obviously a very, very smart and capable individual himself, but somehow people are at their very best around him. And when you go into a meeting with him, you come prepared, and you come and you bring your best game with you to the meeting with him. But he's also a very lovely human being. He's maybe someone that a lot of people would know. Someone I personally consider to be a multiplier.
And I can think of one, Bill McDermott, who is the author of Win a Stream, is the CEO of SAP, and I've seen him in many, many settings, and I know people walked out of his office saying, I can do this. I feel energized. I have hope, and I can set the world on fire.
And if you think about it, that means the leader has to put the other person first. The ego gets checked at the door, which is hard, and I think that's the difference between a leader and a manager. Manager manage tasks, leaders lead people. Okay, that's so cliche. I know that. But you really stop and think about that. Look at Tim Cook's organization. You look at what Apple has done in a post-Steve Jobs world.
And Apple is going to be the first company to have $1 trillion market cap, probably by April. So let's go back to your days at Oracle when you were in charge of developing talent. How did you get the idea for the book Multipliers?
So Oracle had a very clear hiring strategy. Hire for raw intelligence. They were looking for just pure smarts, raw intellect, and achievement orientation, kind of a freaky achievement orientation, kind of like the person who would see the mountain behind you and go, not only I wonder if I could climb that, I wonder how fast I could climb that. So this kind of freaky achievement orientation. And then the third criteria was nice. And I looked at all of these executives, so brilliant, but I just started to notice that they didn't all cause brilliance. And some of them were so fixated, enamored even with their own intellect, their own ideas, that they didn't see all the intelligence around them.
So when you look at what people want, people are down here, they want to go up there. And usually on the way to the top of the mountain, they face an obstacle. So what you're saying is that sometimes the obstacle is either their internal belief system, or it is the manager above them that creates that barrier that prevents them from getting to the top.
People, and it's all around the world, it crosses industries, people come to work desperately wanting to contribute, wanting to give 100% of what they have, all of their ideas, their insights, their capability, and they come in with this incredible drive to contribute. But they often find managers who aren't interested in their ideas or their contribution, who don't see it, who don't need it, or some who like very much don't want it. Like, hey, you know what? I need to be the smartest person in the room, and there's just not room enough for two smart people here. Now you start to build toxicity and apathy. And pretty soon it tells people, you know what? We don't actually need you to do much thinking. Like, we don't need much from you. And people start to settle their ambitions down.
How does somebody who is in an environment where they're being squashed down, I mean, what would be the advisement you would have told me when I was in corporate America and being squashed down and ultimately I left? What would you tell me as to how to deal with that situation?
Well, first of all, I would tell you you're not alone. And
Thank you.
It's very real. Like, you are probably not crazy that this is happening all over our corporations. But then the next conversation I would have with you is that most of the diminishing that's happening isn't coming from tyrannical, narcissistic bullies. That most of the diminishing that's happening is coming from the accidental diminisher. Well-intended leaders who value their people, who see their intellect and their capability, but are often following popular management practice, much of which is diminishing. And I found something very similar, that if you've got a boss who's a diminisher, instead of trying to, like, straight arm them and hold them at bay, keep them out of your business, the best strategy is to invite them in and to be a multiplier to them. It's a strategy I actually kind of learned at Apple in some ways. I went to talk to one of the executives who worked directly for Steve, a man named Ron, and Ron ran the retail side of the business. And I asked Ron how he worked with Steve. He was known for really working very, very well with Steve. And he said, well, when I take our work into Steve for his approval, he said, I go in and I ask a question. Now, one of Steve's great geniuses is he just made things better. He improved stuff. He took like crappy phones and he made them brilliant. And so what Ron would do is they needed to produce, like they were maybe preparing for a new store, a flagship store, maybe like the one on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. And he would go to Steve and he would take their plans and he would say, hey, our team have worked really hard on this. And he would insist that his team, of course, did their very best work. He would take it in and he would ask Steve a single question. It's a brilliant question. And you could probably guess what the question is. He'd say, Steve, how would you make this better? How can we make this better? And Steve would go to work on this. He'd be like, oh, because his mind knew what to do.
So what you're saying is that you shift your mindset towards that accidental diminishing boss and change it from this is going to be a contentious meeting, I have to fight for my survival, or I have to kowtow, or I have to hide. So you shift all that and say, I want to see the genius in my accidental diminishing boss.
Leadership is so much about everything we do every day. And you look at who are the people who get the most out of other people, not taking advantage of them, but lifting them to a higher, the multipliers. It's because they approach people in a little different manner than what most people do.
You could obsess over being kind of the perfect leader. You could read the book and go, okay, I'm going to debate like Lut Ziab. I'm going to ask questions like Tim Brown at IDEO, and I'm going to build all these skills. Actually, the most important thing for you to build is build enough openness on your team that people will call you on your stuff and do it in fun ways. I think that's one thing that we've done a good job of building a team where people will tell you.
What is your most satisfying customer success story?
Really proud of the work that we've done at Nike. Nike adopted this idea of leader as multiplier across their company. And there was a time, and maybe there still is a time, where I could have been, if I had run into a Nike manager just about anywhere in the world, like if I was in Istanbul and in the airport and was sitting next to someone, the head of Nike in Turkey, or a store manager in Turkey, and asked, oh, you work for Nike, you run a store, what is your job? That he or she would have responded with, my job is to unleash the potential of the people on my team. My job is to be a multiplier so that I use and grow the capability of everyone around me. And they probably would have, like any given manager in Nike would be able to say something like that, because they knew it wasn't just a book, it wasn't a set of skills, it was an ethos, a way that they thought about their role. I'm the multiplier to the team.
Steve Jobs made the comment, it's really insane that we hire really brilliant people and then we tell them what to do. Shouldn't they be telling us what to do if we hire really brilliant people? Mm-hmm. So it's all about people. So my goal for next year is to really be significantly influencing, impacting people, not from an egotistical way. No. It's to help get people to the next level. And in so doing, myself to the next level. It's that multiplier.
I'm trying to be more of a multiplier with my son. And I have a 19-year-old son. He's on a gap year between high school and college. He's at home. And it's just magical what is happening with him. He'll go come back from a day in the mountains, and he will have read books. He's spending time reading literature on his own with no teacher making him do it. When my son comes home and he has had an insight from a classic novel he's reading, classic piece of literature, you can imagine how excited I get. Well, it's actually perfect diminisher bait for me. Because what I do is when I see his excitement, so I realized that I was actually kind of a wet blanket on his ideas. It's a very subtle change, but I decided that I was going to swap out a diminishing behavior, which is like sharing my excitement.
Right.
And instead I was just going to ask questions. And so when he comes to me and says, oh yeah, I've been reading this book. I just got done reading The Book of Joy by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And instead of saying, oh, I've read some of Desmond Tutu, I say, oh, what did you like about it? What was interesting to you? And you can imagine what's happened. Like, I'm the first stop. He wants to come and talk about this. So it's a diminishing habit that I have. It's accidental in nature. It's done with the best of intentions, but I'm trying to switch this habit.
I've been in training for many years before I started selling Power Magazine, and I try to energize people. And at the end of the day, I felt exhausted because I was over teaching, I was overthinking, and then all of a sudden I made that shift that it's far better to draw ideas out of people than to pump ideas into people.
You know, when you do this right, you motivate people by inviting them to contribute. You offer a big challenge, you ask a question, you seed an idea, and then people around you are motivated. It's a difference between having an organization where the senior executives are like running around with their hair on fire and everyone else is just like, okay, tell us what to do, versus an organization where the senior executives are like calm and cool and everyone else is on fire.
Yeah, no, it reminds me, I was in you talked about a cocktail reception, and we all sort of take on a different persona, and it becomes more transactional. We look at a lot of people. And before I went to this reception, I thought, I make a vow, I make a goal to just talk to one person and just listen and just be there and see what happens. Without me, competing with information or lecturing or whatever and showing how smart I am and how much I know, I made that person a subject of my curiosity. And it was the best conversation I've ever had.
What I found was the number one characteristic of multipliers, intellectual curiosity. They're operating from a place of wanting to know what other people know. And so you might take the Gerhard challenge of make someone a subject of your curiosity. And then you might layer onto that what I call the extreme question challenge, which is to go into a meeting, a conversation, a cocktail party exchange, and to only ask questions. And I think you might find it to be hard but liberating.